Hey, good morning everybody, Brian Barczyk, and welcome back to another episode of Reptiles in the News. This first story is actually pretty cool, and it's about finding 5 species of snail-eating snake. That's right, Alejandro Ortega is actually a student at the New York City's Natural History Museum, and he was on an expedition in Ecuador, and he found a new species of snail-eating snake. Apparently, they were out searching and were about to give up when they went one last time down an extremely wooded area where there was very dense forest, and he was shining his light, and there it was, a beautiful specimen that he hadn't seen before. It was a slender snake that was pale yellow with red and brown blotches. Later that evening, Ortega actually found a second specimen, and then they ended up taking them back to the lab for extensive DNA testing to find out if they were indeed a new species or one that had already been discovered. After the research, they truly did determine that it was a new species that would eventually be called Cybon beveragii. It turns out his conservation initiative called Tropical Herping has actually discovered 5 species of these snail-eating snakes from 2013 to 2017. All 5 species belong to the genera Dipsyn or Cybon and are all tree-dwelling snakes from South America. Of course, what makes these snakes extremely interesting is the fact that they eat snails. It turns out that they actually strike the snail, they'll hold onto the snail with their teeth, and somehow in a slurping way using their teeth to actually suck the actual innards of the snail down. Apparently, there's over 100 species of snake around the planet that eat snails. Who would have known? Regardless, that's pretty awesome, and I think it's amazing that still in this day and age, there are new species of snakes being found, and people like Ortega are doing an amazing job of finding them. I know that I've mentioned this on a personal level. I would like to one day go out and maybe identify a species. I'm not exactly sure where that would be. Maybe South America, maybe there's some places in Indonesia. Who knows? Maybe one day we can go on an expedition together and name our own species of snake. This next story is one that really makes me upset. I cannot stand this type of thing going on, and this when Europe's largest illegal turtle farm was actually raided in Spain. There was 1,100 turtles, including some endangered species that were valued up to $12,000 per animal. Police also confiscated 750 eggs with 200 more female turtles about to lay eggs. Some of these turtles were some of the most endangered turtles on the planet. As a matter of fact, police say 14 species out of the top 50 most endangered species in the world were found. Most of them from US, Canada, and Mexico. You know, when I read these types of stories, I really get emotional about it. Because the general public, when they look at reptile people, often think that we're criminals, smugglers, black market, these types of things, whereas the vast majority of reptile keepers are completely upstanding citizens and would never want to buy an animal that they even thought could possibly be illegal. But unfortunately, stories like this really paint our entire hobby in the worst of lights. And as this continues to happen, we continue to get a bad name. I urge you to please not deal with anyone that even has the remotest chance of selling a legal animal. Let's face it, we all know what's going on. If there's an animal that's being offered that seems like it might be illegal, chances are pretty good that it is illegal. And these types of farms that are trafficking in illegal animals and really endangered animals and sometimes even threatened animals are absolutely horrific. And it does all of us an injustice, but the truth is, if you're buying an animal that is in question, you're part of the problem as well. I stay away from anything that I even think remotely might be illegal, and I really encourage you to do the same because we have to get this black cloud that is over the reptile hobby away from us. And by doing so, we have to ostracize these types of operations and make sure that they are all held to the same standards that we all are held to, and we have to stop the illegal trade in animals. With that being said, I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on it. Go down in the comments and let me know if you think I'm right or if you have a differing opinion of this. Next up is actually a story that I'm going to try to be as unbiased about as possible, but I'm going to be truthful with you. It's a little hard for me, and that is that researchers are saying that there is a hybrid species of Burmese python that have been found in the Everglades. Margaret Hunter, a geneticist researcher from the USGS, said that over the 400 Burmese pythons that were found from 2002 to 2012, there were 13 species that were hybridized between Burmese pythons and Indian pythons. Now, Burmese pythons are more tropical animals, and anyone that has kept them for any length of time knows that if they get even below 70 degrees for any length of time, they can get respiratory and die. A few years back, there was a very big cold spell down in South Florida, and it killed up to 90% of the animals. That was at least the estimate from some scientists. But Indian pythons are from a higher area and can endure much cooler temperatures. So there have been some reports saying that this new hybrid species between Burmese python and Indian python could potentially migrate much higher than South Florida. Now, the reason I have a problem with this is it seems like every time we turn around, there happens to be a report from either the USGS, the Florida Wildlife Commission, or even the Water Management District that basically says that these animals could migrate out of South Florida. And there was even a report by the USGA that a scientist named Rada wrote that said that they could easily get up into the Ohio Valley within 100 years. Now, of course, that estimate was based on 100 years 7-year climatological forecast saying that the Ohio Valley in January was going to be in the mid-80s to up to 90 degrees. Now, what I said to that is, if Ohio is 80 to 90 degrees in December, there's not going to be a Florida anymore because it's going to be underwater, so the Burmese python issue is the least of our concerns. Hunter said in a statement, hybrid vigor can possibly lead to a better ability to adapt to the environmental stresses and changes. In an invasive population like a Burmese python in South Florida, this could result in a broader and more rapid distribution. And we've heard this story over and over again. Yes, it's a possibility, and listen, science is science. I completely understand it. But this has kind of been something that they've been using to really have some propaganda behind this to make this issue a bigger issue than it is. Now, don't get me wrong. Burmese pythons in the Everglades is a massive problem. We cannot put a cork back in the bottle. It is going to be there for a long time, and there's not really much we can do about it, and it's an absolute travesty. There is no doubt that Burmese pythons are invasive. There is no doubt that there is a big problem down there with native species and indigenous species because of the Burmese python, because they are an apex predator. Essentially, the American alligator was the apex predator until the Burmese python came around. Now they're combating for each other, which is of course going to affect the environment. And I'm very aware of this, and I wish there was an easy answer. But this fear-mongering about potentially Burmese pythons or this new hybrid specimen potentially migrating out of Florida into your backyard is a little bit ridiculous. With that said, I do think that it is an issue and we need to figure it out. I think that there are certainly ways to do it that are better than they're doing now by putting on Burmese hunting, giving out permit systems for people to go kill them. There's probably ways to combat that, but I'm not the smartest guy around. Maybe you have an idea. Do me a favor. Go down in the comments. Let me know what you think about the situation down the Everglades with the Burmese pythons. Not to mention, let me know if you think there's a solution that we could have, as well as how you feel about this new rhetoric about the hybrid species potentially migrating out of Florida. And like we do every week, I take a little bit of a break with the news, and I want to just show you some things that I absolutely love that I saw in the interwebs this week, starting with Justin Gabelica, who's always killing it in the ball python game, that produced this firefly jungle woma clown. That is a beautiful animal, Justin. And then there was this unbelievable melanistic Leachianus from New Geckodonia. Oh my god, that thing is absolutely incredible. Chesty Gutatis actually posted this picture of a white-walled speckled king snake. I remember when these were first produced, probably a good 10 years ago. They were absolutely stunning then, and they still are today. And finally, Greg Sample posted this picture of 3 ball pythons hatching in 1 egg. That's right, triplets. How awesome is that? Let me know in the comments what you've seen this week, and go ahead and post, and I'll try to highlight them in next week's episode. And this last story has a bunch of different layers, so kind of bear with me here as I'm explaining to it. There was a Michigan resident that actually had a bearded dragon named Jill that would apparently run the house. Well, Sarah Richards said that her 8-year-old son on August 1st had left the front door open and the bearded dragon must have gotten out. The next day, Sarah actually posted on Facebook saying that her bearded dragon may have gotten out of the house. Her friend Jeff Zanheiser actually responded to her post saying, "Guess what? I found your bearded dragon in my garden." Now, Richards said that Jeff told her, "I realize this is your bearded dragon, but I'm not going to give it back to you." Richards said that Jeff had said, "I agree that this is your animal," gave Richards his number, said, "Call me tomorrow and we can work this out." This is when things get a little bit weird. Apparently, Jeff gave the bearded dragon, Jill, to another person named Cindy, and when Richards contacted Cindy per Jeff's request, Cindy said she didn't believe the animal actually belonged to Richards. Apparently, Cindy Parrish told Richards that she wanted more pictures to have proof that the animal was actually hers. When Richards sent her the pictures, Cindy actually said it didn't look like the same animal, it was a different color, and she said, "This is not your animal." Now, I don't exactly understand how many wild bearded dragons are roaming around the countryside of Michigan, but if you found a bearded dragon in the proximity of this one getting loose, there's a pretty good chance that it was probably that owner's. To even prove the point that it was her bearded dragon, Parrish said that it was missing a toe, and the bearded dragon that Parrish had the exact same toe missing, but still Parrish said, "No, this is not your bearded dragon." In a statement, Parrish said, "She is the incompetent one that let the thing out the door. It got lost. It was taken by someone else. Oh well, I'm sorry. It's not my fault that she let the thing get away, and I didn't do anything wrong at all." Parrish also said that Richards was rude to her, and people on social media were attacking her about the reptile, so she gave the animal to someone else, but wouldn't say who. According to Fox 17, Parrish, the one that actually will not give the animal back to Richards, said she had a list of demands that Richard had to come to in order for her to give the name of the person that she ended up giving it to. So let me get this story straight for 1 second. A bearded dragon is running loose in someone's house. An 8-year-old kid lets it out of the house. A neighbor gets the animal, says, "Oh yeah, I found your animal, I'll give it back to you," but then gives it to another person. That person claims that it's not the same bearded dragon, and then gives it to someone else, and now won't tell the original owner who she gave it to. Parrish told Fox 17, "I'm not going to try and do anything for this woman unless she makes a huge confession to me first, because she doesn't have any idea what I went through trying to get this thing to the correct owner. Furthermore, Paris said Richard should just be happy that it's in a good home and isn't dead like she originally thought it was. In the end, Richard said she would do whatever Paris wanted her to do to potentially get her animal back, and didn't understand why she was holding her animal hostage in the first place. All she wants is her animal back. I think that my takeaway from this story is the fact that, first off, you should probably not let your bearded dragon run around the house without being in a cage. It's probably not really good. I don't mind someone letting their bearded dragon or any animal like my girl Bella run around when it's actually being attended, but when you're not attending it and potentially could get out of your house, that's not a good situation. It again paints a bad picture for reptile keepers in the fact that it could be an invasive species. Now, of course, in Michigan, a bearded dragon wouldn't make it through the winter, but if you were in a warm weathered state, that would be a bad situation. So where I do feel very sorry for Richards in this case, and she certainly should get her animal back, she should probably exercise a little bit more caution with taking care of her animal. With that being said, I hope she gets her animal back, and I don't really understand what the whole reasoning behind these other players in this story not wanting to give her animal back. I mean, what do they have to benefit her? But as always, I'll leave it up to you. Who's the villain in this story? What would you do about it if you lost an animal, or if you found an animal? Who is the right person? Who is the wrong person in this way? I'm not 100% sure. As always, I'm going to let you guys do the final decision, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Reptiles in the News. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure to subscribe and hit that like button if you want to see more episodes of Reptiles in the News, as well as other series that we're going to be doing on this channel pretty soon. Thank you for all your support. Have an absolutely amazing day. This has been Reptiles in the News.